I have a concern about 2019 and iPhone shipments, simply because the iPhone 10 last year has been extremely successful. And my work shows that about 15 million consumers brought forward the refresh of their iPhone in 2018. They were supposed to refresh it in 19. They did it in 18 because they were very excited by the iPhone 10. So as a result, you have 15 million users that are out of the market in 19. And so as the new lineup of the X phones, like the Max, the XS, and the XR, are coming into the market, they are going to meet like a lower demand. And I expect shipments this year to be down against last year.
Rob, you have a buy on the rating. You think the stock's going higher. Why do you disagree with that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm actually looking for a little bit better unit growth, frankly, in 2019. Not a ton, but iPhone units haven't been growing for the past couple of years. I actually think this year they grew maybe 1%. Next year I think they could grow 2 to 3%. And two things going on. One is I actually think the XS Max, that larger screen phone, I actually expect to be a really big seller this year. I think not having a plus size version of the 10 last year was noticeably absent. So I think there is pent-up demand for that larger screen phone. And at the end of the day, it's actually iPhone ASPs that are driving the iPhone revenue growth. And although last year we had a huge 17% jump in iPhone ASPs, I expect them still to be up kind of 5-6% again this year. So I think we still get like high single-digit iPhone revenue growth, which for me is enough for Apple stock to work.
Yeah, Pierre, the refresh cycle on iPhone has been lagging for years now. So even despite the relatively good reception for the iPhone 10, it was no super cycle. So I'm not sure why you think that if the iPhone 10s and 10s Max are indeed what people are looking for, bigger screens, better cameras, etc., why that wouldn't drive even more demand than you might have expected. And then the average selling prices, which even you are saying are going to be higher this quarter than the street's consensus, why that wouldn't follow through into the holiday.
Mm-hmm. Thanks, John. So on your first question, I think the R, the S, and the Max are what people are expecting, and I expect these phones to be successful. But if you have 15 million buyers, who are buyers who refresh their phone every 2-3 years, who decided to refresh in 18 because they were very excited by the first X, they are not going to be there to buy the XR, the Max, or the S. So I actually agree with the bull argument that the S, the R, and the Max are going to be very successul, but on a market in which 15 million users, which is 7% of the total annual typical market, are actually missing. Then on your second question, yes, so this quarter is really the quarter where Apple is pushing up into the channels their new phones. And when you look at the new lineup of Apple, it's a $1,100 phone, a $1,000 phone, and a $750 phone. So yes, these phones are pushing ASPs up, and I think actually the street is slightly underestimating that in its expectations for Q4, so fiscal Q1. But then when fiscal Q2 comes, like the first quarter next year, what happens? Apple sees that in the channels, demand is slightly below their expectations. They have to adjust their shipments. And of course, this adjustment is going to come mostly in the higher end of the market where this pull forward happens. So that means that in Q1, calendar Q1, fiscal Q2, what we see is a disappointing number of phones being shipped and a disappointing ASPs because the cut is mostly in the higher end of the market.
Rob, Journal ran some numbers this week about the average time that people spend with their phone before they replace it. 2.8 years versus 2.4 years a couple of years ago. How high can that number go?
Well, I mean, I think the replacement cycle for smartphones is kind of pushing from 2 years historically toward 3 years. And that's something for the whole market to deal with. I think, not to sound a little corny, but I think one of the metrics that matters a lot is how much people use their phone. And I think this is the difference between PCs, for example, where replacement cycles really stretched out. And if you look at a phone, I mean, the average person checks their phone something like 150 times a day. And so because it's such an important device, I think people are looking to sort of keep a relatively fresh device. I don't think pushing beyond 3 years is very likely for that important a product.
Okay, quickly before we let both of you go, with earnings after the bell today, key thing each of you are watching. Pierre, I'll start with you.
key thing we should be watching is actually Apple's management comments about the outlook, reception of the new phones. I think numbers in this quarter are less important than like qualitative comments.
Okay, Rob, quickly you.
Yeah, December quarter guide and any commentary on China.